Hi there, Robin here, and welcome to the Happy Infectious Faces video series. And here I'll be working with super inexpensive paint. And yes, I did say super inexpensive paint. A whole $1.65 super inexpensive paint. I bought it here in Ecuador in a papeleria or a stationery store. So in this video, I'm going to show you this $1.65 set, and I'm going to practice to see if I can actually have it happen. This gum arabic is going to make the paint go from, well, somewhat difficult to a lot easier to manage. Now, the gum arabic selection is with the ripped paper, and the other one is a strip sample, or sample anyway. And I want to show you what the gum arabic will do. And look at how much paint comes off on that sample that's directly without any mixture. It's the gum arabic that's going to make this a whole lot easier to work with. Gum arabic is a resin from a tree, and it's natural, and it happens to be used in all circles for a binder or a smoothing agent for your paint. This one's actually the worst. Look at that. Oh my gosh, so much came off. You can also use honey, and both those situations, both of them are a yellowish or brownish material, and they can be added to watercolor, and it has been done in the past. It's reputable, it's been always done. Core watercolor uses another agent, and it is a clear agent. So the one thing that does happen with these is that they are slightly yellow, so you have to be aware of that in the future of it. And I'm going to say that I don't use honey in this country because, well, honey attracts ants, and I don't want ants in my studio. So I've pre-wet the little pats, and I'm using one of my favorite paintbrushes from Escoda, and I'm creating and adding my first layers of paint. As you can see, it's really easy to remove, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's really quite grainy. So I'm using the plastic palette that comes as a lid for this set, and bit by bit you're going to see me dip for just a drop the end of my brush to make the binder more active, to help the paint or the pigment stick to the image or where I'm working. And since it is a natural ingredient, you can find it. Because it is a natural ingredient, you can find this from another area as well. And you'll find gum arabic actually located in cake decoration. So if you're having a hard time locating it, because that is going to be the only expensive thing in this video, other than my paintbrush, you can find it in, like I said, probably your cake sections. If you can't get a hold of it, in a paint section. Sometimes it's actually cheaper in the cake section than it is actually in artist grade. And it's the same stuff virtually, especially if you're not really worried about it being as cheap as you can get it. I happen to think that gum arabic is important for a number of reasons. You can either paint it on the surface directly, and that can create a resist, or you can use it for a whole number of situations. But in this case, we're going to use it to make this paint better. I have to say the only thing I can't get rid of out of this paint is how grainy it is. Even after, when it's all said and done and dried, it does have a rough feel to it. And it's probably because they don't use as fine of a grind for their pigments. And I have to say, using the gum arabic has made this so much easier to use. It flows just a little bit better, although it doesn't flow a ton. So you're going to see me using my air dryer like I always use, and I'm being especially careful because since the paint is so rough and grainy, I don't want that to chew up the paper. So I'm going to make sure that my paper is always super dried. It's always tight. It's always flat. If you have too much if you push this paper too much, especially with this paint, it's going to lift and you're going to have pilling and deterioration of the paper. So we're going to be careful and use lots of heat to it. Now I'm made this video a lot shorter because I did use many layers, and in some ways it was the layers, repeated layers that made this a lot more work. But at the same time, I was still able to achieve a decent painting out of for my project. It was a really good experience because although I've said it for years that you can make good art out of many kinds of cheap things, this was the cheapest I think I've ever used other than a ballpoint pen. And it was a real walk my talk thing. And you know, that's a good challenge to have. I have to say, what I prefer, of course, is always the higher quality. But, you know, we all tend to, not all of us, of course, but it's really easy to collect and hang on to art supplies and keep buying and then think that the only good art supplies is the expensive stuff. And that's simply not true. I've seen some really, well, not great art made with super quality artwork or with super quality art supplies, and yet, of course, either due to their experience or taste or whatever, it wasn't up to what I felt was good enough. But this is where you develop a skill or a practice, and then when you get the opportunity to use the good stuff, then you realize what a gift that is. So it's good to sketch with, it's good to practice with. I'm not super sure the light fastness, and the light fastness means if it will maintain its vibrancy over time. I would probably say no. If I was going to say my first thing, I doubt it's even been tested for light fastness. I mean, it's $1.75. It's like no money at all, and you can't expect a company putting that out for a child's school project to be super tested. I don't even know if it's been tested for toxicity, and of course that makes me a little nervous, but you don't dip it in your mouth. So you rinse it, double rinse it with dirty water, and then rinse it with another glass for clean water. And you can see here I've had to mix colors to get the colors I like. There's a weird color in here. It's a reddish color. It's not quite alizarin or a pinky color. It's right on that corner there, you can see, and I can't even tell you what that color is. I've never seen it before in regular paint, but it does add well to give a vibrancy of flesh tones. It's added to it. I'm using the oranges and sometimes the yellows to give a life to it. And yet I'm using the purple and the black mixture and maybe a little red to add for the dark lights. And I'm going to be also using the white to add the white lights to it. And with that, I used an abundance amount of the gum arabic. Now, usually with gum arabic, it might leave a little bit of a shine. And you can see, because it's a resin, so it leaves like a silkiness to it, but I didn't see it so much on the painting as I did see it after the paint had dried on the surface of the pats themselves. So it was a really good experience, a tough one, but enjoyable, you know, and I could feel it in the brush hairs. So with this kind of paint, I really made sure my brushes were clean after. I don't want the grittiness to destroy or beat up the hairs of my very fine quality brushes. So I would say you can use this for, well, everything. So don't limit yourself to the idea that you can only paint with super quality art supplies to create good art. You know, there's something I often say, and it's like resourcefulness plus creativity equals amazing art. And so be resourceful and be creative, and you can find that you'll be able to make art out of almost anything. And that's really important to do. You'll find out what the real art is. And that is the idea and the development of the idea to make an opportunity to express yourself really well. So I finished this one. It was tough, and I have to say I learned a lot because I had to develop this in many, many layers. And I'm really glad that I had my gum arabic here and not the honey, because I don't want ants all over my workshop. They smell it, man, and they come. So I'm finishing up with my vintage Rotring pen with Rotring drawing ink, and we're done. And there we go. Again, really cheap art supplies made better. So thank you for, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to all to be informed when I post more in the future. And leave a comment below and let me know how you feel about this. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.